Hey everyone, in honor of No Way Home, I figured it's a good time to update my Spider-Man ranking. Before we start, spoiler alert. Starting off the bottom, my number 9 is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. This movie is a mess, but it has its moments. Most of the acting is good. Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone have great chemistry.
I just don't want it to be complicated.
I was just saying that to someone I hate complicated.
Keep it simple.
Okay, great, yeah. All right. But I mean, if we're gonna be friends, I think we gotta establish some ground rules.
Some ground rules?
Yeah, some ground rules. Like that.
Like what?
That laugh. That's off the table.
My laugh
That
is
laugh
off the
is
table?
off the table. You gotta figure out a more annoying laugh. That's still adorable.
Sally Field is good, and Dane DeHaan does the best he can with what he's given. Jamie Foxx is also really good. Like with the first movie, the cinematography is on point, especially when the camera follows Spidey as he's swinging.
Good morning, New Yorkers. Looking for another beautiful day here in the city. Blue clouds to start us off.
The steady increase in sightings of Spider-Man has sparked a national debate over the role of vigilantism in American crime fight.
The action is mostly good. It's well shot, well edited, and fairly easy to follow. As far as character designs go, Electro is pretty solid. Hobgoblin is meh. He's okay. He's not good, but it's not terrible. And despite some of the things I'll talk about later, Gwen's death is genuinely heartbreaking. On the other hand, the pacing is a mess. There are some scenes that feel rushed, and there are other scenes that feel very drawn out. This is partially because the movie makes some of the same mistakes as Spider-Man 3, trying to cram too many characters and too many subplots into, well, a feature-length film with a decent runtime. As Phil Mento likes to say, when you have too many things going on in your movie and you need to trim some fat, the right way to do it is to take some of them and just remove them completely. What you shouldn't do is just trim a little bit off of each one, because then they all become underdeveloped. Harry returns after being gone for like 8 years or so, and because he wasn't in the first movie, they have to have some scenes setting up his friendship with Peter as a baseline for before he goes off the deep end. The problem is that because there's so much other stuff going on in this movie, A, we're not even introduced to Harry until like half an hour in, and B, there's not enough time dedicated to their friendship in order to sell it. Andrew Garfield and Dane DeHaan do at least have some chemistry, but it's not enough. Rhino is defeated, humiliated, and arrested in the opening scene, then he fucks off until the very end to give us that cliffhanger. Speaking of which, fuck that ending. That shot of him swinging around with the manhole cover was the best part of the trailer. And that's the end of your movie? Come on! That's not how you do a cliffhanger. This is how you do a cliffhanger.
I don't work well under pressure! You know that! Oh, shit. Tucker? Wash?
What in Sam hell are you boys doing here?
We came to save you. But we were supposed to save you. Ba-ba-bum. Cliffhanger.
And like Independence Day Resurgence, this movie puts too much effort into setting up future sequels and spin-offs, and not enough effort into telling its own story. My score is 2.5 out of 5. Moving on up, my number 8 is Spider-Man 3. On the one hand, this movie has some of the best action in the trilogy.
Uh-oh.
and most of the acting is great. Tobey Maguire, Thomas Hayden Church, James Franco, Rosemary Harris, and J.K. Simmons are all good if not great. Kirsten Dunst gives her best performance in the trilogy, which isn't saying much, but, you know, it's something. Christopher Young's musical score is also pretty great. It borrows some stuff from Danny Elfman's scores from the first two movies, but it also does its own thing, and it mixes those two things well enough to stand on its own. I love that this movie doesn't pull its punches and actually kills Harry. It's a genuinely emotional and heartbreaking moment. I also appreciate Sam Raimi's commitment to setting up more stuff down the road. Like the Spider-Man 2, this movie is continuing to set up Kirk Connors as eventually becoming the Lizard, so good on him. Unlike The Amazing Spider-Man 2, they don't put too much effort into that. They just continue doing enough to set things up for future movies. Despite the retconning, I do like the emotional payoff between Peter and Sandman. It's a touching scene, and both actors play it very well.
I didn't want this. But I had no choice.
We always have a choice. You had a choice when you killed my uncle.
My daughter was dying. I needed money. I was scared. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to understand.
I've done terrible things too.
I didn't choose to be this. The only thing left to me now is my daughter.
I forgive you.
And finally, this movie has Bruce Campbell's funniest cameo in the entire trilogy. That whole scene is just priceless. One thing I'm kind of mixed on is Topher Grace. On the one hand, he really sells Eddie Brock's sleaziness. On the other hand, he's just annoying as Venom. Like Amazing Spider-Man 2, this movie tries to juggle too many characters and subplots, and similarly, it buckles under all that weight. Apparently, Sam Raimi always plans to have 3 villains, but I'm pretty sure instead of Venom, he wanted to have Vulture, which would have been cool. Unfortunately, studio interference happened, and Raimi had to replace a character he knew a lot about with one he wasn't very familiar with. There are also some kind of dumb moments in this movie. Like when Harry makes MJ break up with Peter, he's just watching her from a distance. It hasn't been established that he has any sort of listening device on her, so we have no reason to suspect that he can hear her. So why doesn't she just tell Peter the truth? And also, most of the action is really good, but the fight between Peter and Harry in the alleyway kinda stretches believability because there's no way in hell it took the wedding ring that long to fall to the ground. Like, there's no way Peter had enough time to catch it. My score is 3.25 out of 5. This is where I'm probably gonna get a little controversial. My number 7 is the original Spider-Man. Like with Spider-Man 2 and 3, the acting is solid across the board. Maguire, Franco, Harris, and Simmons are all great, and Willem Dafoe is just fantastic as Green Goblin. He's definitely hamming up, but it fits the tone of the movie, so I think it works.
Spider-Man! This is why only fools are heroes. Because you never know when some lunatic will come along with a sadistic choice.
I might be in the minority here, but I've always preferred this version of Spider-Man's natural web slingers over the comic-accurate, external, artificial, homemade ones. I don't know, just personal preference, I guess. The action is great, the special effects are really good, and Danny Elfman's score is fantastic.
Misery, misery, misery. That's what you've chosen. I offered you friendship, and you spat in my face.
On the other hand, there is some stuff that doesn't really hold up. There are a handful of continuity errors like this one at the funeral.
Only a friend? Peter Parker?
That's all I have to give.
My score is 3.9 out of 5. Number 6 is The Amazing Spider-Man. When it comes to the three Peters, I think Tobey Maguire is the best Peter, Andrew Garfield is the best Spider-Man, and Tom Holland does the best job of balancing the two. Andrew Garfield nails Spider-Man's quippiness without going over the top.
Just let me go.
Is that a knife? Is that a real knife?
Yes, it's a real knife.
My weakness, it's small knives.
Just let me go.
Anything but knives!
Oh, it's so simple.
That was cool.
What the hell is this? Webbing that I developed myself. I don't think you really want to know. Come on, let me go. One second. Stop, get off, man. No. Come on, let me go. Stop it. Dude, that isn't funny.
It is kind of funny, man.
And his Peter's pretty good too. Emma Stone is really good. She and Andrew have fantastic chemistry.
I wish I could just... I can't. It's hard to say.
Just say.
I know.
Say. Why? What? What?
Rhys Ifans is great as Kurt Connors, and Chris Zilka gives us probably the best portrayal of Flash.
Hey, Parker.
Not today, Flash.
Hey, come on, man. I don't just want to talk. Feels better, right? Look, your uncle died. I'm sorry. I get it. I'm sorry. Okay.
The action is great, and I love that the camera work uses these long shots that follow Spider-Man as he's swinging. I also love the scene where the crane workers come together to help him. And unlike some of the stuff in Amazing Spider-Man 2, that was actually properly set up ahead of time. Because, you know, you have to have the setup in order to do the payoff correctly. On the other hand, this movie's plot is too similar to the original Spider-Man, doesn't do enough of its own thing. I think it's better as a whole, but in that regard, I feel like it's too similar. And the CGI for Lizard is great, but I don't know. Something about the design is just a little bit off. Maybe it's the face. I don't know. My score is 4 out of 5. Number 5 is Spider-Man Homecoming. This movie was a breath of fresh air for Spider-Man. Unlike Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man, this one's not an origin story, and honestly, it's better for it. We didn't need a third Spider-Man origin story in 15 years. Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jacob Batalon are great, and Michael Keaton is fantastic.
What are you doing here? There's a dance.
I'm looking at porn.
Most of the action is solid. There are some great character moments. The whole scene in the car when they're driving to the dance is just fantastic. It's so good.
Yo, I actually didn't go up. I saw it off on the ground. Very lucky that he was there that day.
Good old Spider-Man.
Dad, light.
I love, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it. Because, yeah, that's true. The musical score is pretty great, especially when they do the callback to the classic theme. My only major problem with this movie is the fight on the plane. It's fine, it's not like incomprehensible, I just feel like it uses too many quick cuts. My score is 4.5 out of 5. Number 4 is Spider-Man Far From Home. I seem to be in the minority that prefers this over Homecoming, but whatever. The cinematography and the directing are slightly better. The writing is just as good, and the villain is just as great, if not better. Jake Gyllenhaal is great at portraying both sides of Mysterio.
For the next Tony Stark, I trust you.
What?
Mr. Stark left me a message with those glasses. For the next Tony Stark, I trust you.
I'm still not following. How many lemonades have you had?
He knew every mistake I ever made, okay? So he must have known that I was not ready for something like this.
Why would he give it to you?
Because maybe he didn't trust me to have Edith, he just trusted me to pick who should. It makes so much more sense. He always knew I would do what's right, and he's not gonna give them to Fury because Fury would just give himself Edith.
You're probably right about that.
Right, so the world needs the next Iron Man, and it's not gonna be me. I mean, I'm a 16-year-old kid from Queens. It needs to be an adult with some experience, and that's good, like Tony Stark, like you.
No, Peter, come on. No.
Edith?
Hello, Peter.
Hi. Yeah, I'd like to transfer your control over to Quentin Beck.
Peter, what are you doing?
Doing the right thing.
Any transfer will require confirmation.
Stark gave you the glasses.
Stark gave me a choice. It's my choice to make, okay? And I'm gonna make it. Look, you're a soldier, a leader. You stopped the elementals. You saved my life. You saved the world, okay? He'd want you to have them.
Waiting for confirmation.
Confirm. Welcome to the Avengers. Look good on you.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah. Mr. Stark would have really liked you.
Where you headed?
I'm gonna go find MJ.
Good luck, kid. I'll give you about a 50-50 chance. You're pretty awkward, so.
Yeah. See you later, man.
See ya.
See, that wasn't so hard.
Somebody get this stupid costume off me!
Tom Holland and Zendaya have great chemistry, and their interactions are perfectly believably awkward.
I'm glad we're doing this.
Yeah, me too.
To see the city a little bit.
You know, they used to execute people on this bridge. They would, like, put them in a basket and they would drown in the water. Sorry.
It's okay. Look, there's this thing that I've been wanting to talk to you about for a while.
The action is also slightly better. Mysterio's illusions are great, especially the whole scene where he's tormenting Peter. It's just, ugh.
If you were good enough, maybe Tony would still be alive.
I don't have a lot of problems with this movie. There are a handful of plot conveniences. As much as I love Mysterio, I kind of wish he wasn't another villain created by Tony Stark's checkered past, for lack of a better word. We've had like 5 or 6 of that type of villain at this point. I mean, it makes sense. Tony made a lot of enemies, but still, my score is 4.6 out of 5. Number 3 is Spider-Man 2. I love Garfield, Holland, and Maguire's versions of Spider-Man, but Tobey Maguire is, in my opinion, still the best Peter Parker. He's just so perfectly believably awkward. Rosemary Harris is still the best Aunt May. I don't care what anyone says. Alfred Molina is fantastic, and his portrayal of Doc Ock is one of my favorite supervillains ever. Once again, J.K. Simmons gives us, hands down, the most accurate portrayal of a comic book character in any piece of media.
Chief, I found Parker.
Where you been? Looking for you all morning. Why don't you pay your phone bill? Mad scientist goes berserk and we don't have pictures.
I heard Spider-Man was there.
Where were you? Photographing squirrels? You're fired.
Chief, the planetarium party.
Oh, right. You're unfired. I need you. Come here. What do you know about high society?
Oh, well,
Don't answer that. My society photographer got hit in the head by a polo ball. You're all I got. Big party for an American hero. My son, the astronaut.
Could you pay me in advance?
You serious? Pay you for what? Standing there? The planetarium tomorrow night, 8 o'clock.
Even more so than Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, although he's probably like a close second. Also, this bit from the extended cut is absolutely priceless.
Where have you gone to, Spider?
The writing, cinematography, and editing are all better, especially since there aren't really any continuity errors that I noticed. The action is great, especially the train fight, and Danny Elfman's musical score is one of his best. My one small problem is Kirsten Dunst. She's not terrible, but she can be kind of annoying sometimes. My score is 4.8 out of 5. Number 2 is Spider-Man No Way Home. John Watts really stepped up his game for this movie. It takes everything the first 2 MCU Spider-Man movies did good, does them just as well if not better, and then also does some other stuff well. Pretty sure that sentence is grammatically correct. You don't have to have seen Sam Raimi's trilogy or the Amazing Spider-Man movies to enjoy this movie, but it certainly helps. The acting is great. The cinematography, editing, and directing are all the best in this trilogy. The action is fantastic.
Hello, Peter.
Hi? Do I know you?
What have you done with my machine?
Your machine. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. What machine?
Do you want to play games? Catch!
Don't worry, ma'am! I'm coming!
The comedy is funny, the emotional moments work. For all the things this movie succeeds at, the most important one is that it keeps things personal. The plot is driven by Peter's actions and his choices. His inner conflict is directly connected to the external conflict, and that's why they both work.
Give me the box.
No.
The mirror dimension, where I'm in control.
Strange, stop! Can we please just talk about this?
Parker, don't you realize that in the multiverse there are an infinite number of people who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man? And if that spell gets loose, they're all coming here!
Look, I know, I get it, but we can't just send them home to die.
It's their fate. You can't change that any more than you can change who they are.
Whoa, what are you doing?
Okay, now we're getting into spoiler territory here. Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are finally back, and oh my god, the three of them together is just so satisfying. And I also love that we get to see the villains interact with each other, because we haven't really seen that before. There's fan service, but none of it feels egregious, so it's fine. My one and only complaint is that Eddie Brock and Venom are basically just a cameo at the end, and the only thing they did was leave behind a little bit of Venom when they left. The score is 4.9 out of 5. Finally, my number one is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's been a little over 3 years since this movie came out, and it still understands the comic book medium and how to translate it onto film better than any other movie I've seen. It's not the best comic book movie I've seen, but it's the best comic book movie I've seen. I hope that makes sense. The cast is solid across the board, but Nicolas Cage is the standout for sure.
Wherever I go, the wind follows. And the wind, it smells like rain.
You're
like me. My name is Peter Parker.
I was bitten by a radioactive pig.
It's 1933, and I'm a private eye. I like to drink egg creams, and I like to fight Nazis. A lot. Sometimes I let matches burn down to my fingertips just to feel something, anything. Oh. This is... purple.
No.
Blue?
No.
This is a pretty hardcore origin story.
Do you mind taking this outside?
We don't pick the ballroom, we just dance.
If we don't get a Nicolas Cage Spider-Man noir movie at some point in the future, and have it at least be PG-13 if not R, I will be pissed. The animation is great. It blends together a bunch of different styles, and it manages to make it work. I love all the little details cluing us in that this isn't our universe, this is an alternate universe. Like how Edgar Wright made From Dusk Till Dawn, which would either be in place of Shaun of the Dead or like a sequel to it or something like that. I'm assuming it's in place of, but I don't know for sure. My absolute favorite little detail is the fact that the whole thing is animated at 24 frames per second, but when Miles becomes Spider-Man at first, when he first gets his powers, he starts off at 12 frames per second to show how he's awkward and he's not used to this, he's still learning. And then throughout the movie, as he becomes more comfortable with it, his frame rate goes up until eventually it's 24 frames per second like everything else. It's just, that level of detail is just mind-boggling, because so many people just wouldn't even notice. Oh, and I also love the implication that Aunt May and Doc Ock were friends at some point.
What did you say your name was?
Dr. Olivia Octavius.
Can I assume that your friends call you Doc Ock?
My friends actually call me Liv. My enemies call me Doc Ock.
Cute place. Real homey.
Oh, great, it's Liv.
The writing is top-notch, the action is energetic and fun, the music is fantastic. My one tiny complaint is that everything in this movie feels like it happens just a little bit too fast. Like, usually I'm not in favor of making movies longer, but I feel like this movie could have benefited from like another 5 or 10 minutes. Not much, just a little bit more. Just to let things breathe a little bit. My score is 5 out of 5. Hey everyone, what's your Spider-Man ranking? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe and all that. If you don't like the video, subscribe anyway so you'll be updated when I upload a new video and you can tell me how bad that one is too. Who knows, maybe some of it will actually be decent feedback. Oh, I've been putting this in the description of my videos, but I figured I should just mention it. I'm also a writer, mainly just for fun. I am on Wattpad and Archive of Our Own, or AO3. I'll drop those links in the description. So yeah, if you're interested, check it out. That's all for now. Stay safe in these crazy times.